Alright, and welcome back to Zero Cool Gaming, and today we're going to be doing a review of a video game, in fact two of them, called Titanfall and Titanfall 2.
After many decades of setbacks, scientists have discovered a way to fold space and time.
Have discovered a dense zone of habitable planets, and everyone is calling it a new frontier. Dr. Hammond, now as I understand it, the IMC's refueling facility here at Demeter is vital for travel between the core and the frontier.
Decades-long tensions exploded into all-out war on the frontier today. The group calling themselves the Militia have conducted numerous raids on IMC garrisons in at least...
Vice Admiral Graves, you and Captain McCallan have a long history of successful operations against the militia. What do you think made him turn, Admiral? Why did McCallan betray you?
Now, I'm going to give you a little back history of me in this game, because in truth I think this is the game that I've probably played the most in my life. Between the two games, I have somewhere between 4,500 and 5,000 hours of gameplay on them. The first game I know I played for 3,200 hours. The second one I played for somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 hours. Yeah, a lot of gameplay. I liked the first game a lot. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And to give you a little history, the first online game I ever played was Doom, the 1994 game. Multiplayer death matches is what I played. And it wasn't really online, it was more like an intranet in the company. So I played against other employees. The next game that I ever played online was Unreal Tournament 2003 and 2004. With that game, I easily put 3,000 hours in between the two games, if not 4,000. And then with this one, like I said, somewhere between 4,500 and 5,000 hours. So, one of the things that you'll notice about each of these games is that each one of them had a unique movement system for the era that it was created in. Even though Doom today, the movement system seems very basic. I mean, there wasn't even a jump button. For its time, it was revolutionary. Strafe shooting, to be able to move in a circle around your enemies at a faster rate of speed than what you could in any one direction. That was unique for its time. Unreal Tournament 2003-2004 had a jump, what do they call it? Jump evade, wall bouncing. If you jump, evaded, and bounced into a wall, if it was a wall with an angle on it, you would jump again. This type of movement system, if used properly, would allow you to move across the field at incredible speeds. Truly. You also had adrenaline in this game, which would increase your speed even more. There were ways to take advantage of the movement system that they gave you. And the skill ceiling was pretty high. With Titanfall, they took it to a new level. The skill ceiling was very high. And you could, with just general understanding of the movement system, you could achieve, 50 to 60 miles an hour. With a stem boost, you would achieve, I think it was 75. But if you learned how to fall and bunny hop with your movement system, you could achieve 120 miles an hour as far as your movement speed. And trying to hit a target that's traveling that fast is almost impossible. You could dodge bullets, quite literally, in this game. Which made it a very unique game to play. So, we'll go ahead and talk about the story, and then I'll get back to more of the gameplay. So, it starts out where you have the IMC against the militia. In this scenario, the militia are essentially the good guys, and the IMC is a militaristic company that essentially wants to keep the frontier under its boot and collect taxes and things of this effect, and continue their dominance over the people, not just through fear, but tyranny. Quite literal tyranny. So the people rise up against the IMC, and they convert their farming technology that they have, and that's what most of the Titans were. They were designed for building buildings, massive industrial farms, mining, all these sorts of things. And they converted them into military weapons by adding guns and missile platforms, these sorts of things, shields to them. Some of them already had shields, flamethrower, you name it, all sorts of things. There's not actually a flamethrower in the game, but you get the idea. So, with this war that was going on, and it was the militia rising up against the IMC. It starts out with the militia quickly running out of fuel. So they go to a planet that mines for fuel, the fuel that they need for their fleet, and you basically steal the fuel so that you can last longer than the month of fuel supplies that you currently have. Most of the story I'm going to be telling on the side of the militia, just because the side of the IMC is pretty dystopian. So after they gather the fuel that they need, they head to a place where the well, I guess the next place that they go to is an outpost where it's just, farmers and things like that. People, it's a colony, a small colony, but it's an unregistered colony. And they head there because of a SOS that they receive that they're being attacked by the IMC. And when they get there, they see that the IMC is using this outpost of civilians to test their new Spectre technology, which is a type of Terminator robot. And your objective is to secure the civilians, rescue them essentially, take out the Spectres, and hold off the IMC until that mission can be completed. By the time you get there, most of the civilians have already been evacuated to some place. And you get notified of this from a transmission from a guy who used to work for the IMC, used to be a commander actually. And he's very upset with both the IMC for attacking this colony as well as the militia, because he believes that you're the reason that the IMC came to this position. And that's not exactly true, but from his point of view, that's how he sees it. So once you find out who this guy is, you tell him, we can help you get the colonists to safety. We just need to know where you are, and we'll send a fleet to your location to secure the civilians and take them someplace else. So he tells you that he's on a downed IMC military vessel, and that's where he had the civilians transported to in order to protect them from this, bloody assault that the IMC is enforcing upon them. When you get there, he tells you that this downed ship has a bunch of information that could help to lock the IMC out of the frontier for good. And he just needs time to extract this information from the ship's computer systems, which are still logged into the network of the IMC. And once he's finished doing that, you can blow the ship, blow the site, and get out of there. So you secure the site, give him the time that he needs, and after he's gotten all the information, he tells you that there's another person who might be of assistance to the militia, and he was also ex-military, or ex-IMC. But he was a really good fighter and tactician, one of the best. And he's currently on another planet, essentially hiding from the IMC. So Barker doesn't think like your normal officer, or even pilot for that matter. His first idea is to go after the flagship of the IMC while it's in dock to be repaired. And that's what you're going to do. And you're going to actually use the planetary defenses of the IMC to do that. You seize control of the military base and use the railguns to destroy the flagship. And that's actually a fairly decent military strategy, especially if you are not the military or not the army in control of certain areas. Simply use the weaponry that your enemy has built and developed to destroy their own, like in this case, their military vessel or the military base itself, things to this effect. The next idea that they come up with is to go after the repulsor technology, or the shielding technology that the military bases themselves use to prevent attacks against them, not only by opposing forces, but by even wildlife on hostile planets. And to do so, you travel to a top secret planet where they actually developed this repulsor technology, and you hack into the system to gain enough information enabling you to find a weakness within it and a way to shut it down on the newer installations that have an upgraded version of this repulsor technology. And then you decide that you're going to fly to Demeter, anyway, to another system, which is where the bulk of the IMC fleet and military are located. And you're going to need to take out some of the actual military bases themselves. Alright, so by destroying the IMC refueling station, you create a situation where it'll take years for the IMC to send reinforcements to the frontier. And then you go after their Spectre manufacturing plant, which are their robotic terminators. With these destroyed, it enables the militia to make a true offensive against the remaining forces of the IMC and free the frontier from their tyrannical control. And that's basically the story from Titanfall 1. So, I did want to talk a little bit more about the gameplay itself. One of the things that I liked about Titanfall 1 was the regen system. You started as a Generation 1 pilot, and you could go all the way to Gen 10 level 50, which was the highest level you could reach. By going through the regen process, you would learn every single weapon that the pilots could carry. You would be required to play as all the different pilots available, and you would have to use all the different loadouts available for those pilots. As well, you would have to use all the 3 different Titans that were available, all the different weapons that were available to those Titans, and the loadouts that you could put on them. By going through all the different generations, you essentially learned all the different aspects available in the game, period. Weapons, pilots, loadouts, all of it. Which gave reason to go through these regen processes. So at the very least, by the time you reached a Gen 10 level 50, you had some conception of how everything functioned. Because you had to use it for a period of time just to meet the regen requirements for the next generation. And for me, it's not that it made the game more fun, it raised the level of gameplay for everyone who decided to go through this process. Meaning that by the time I stopped playing it after like 3 years, most of the pilots that you were fighting against were Gen 10 level 50 pilots at that point. Meaning that almost everyone you were up against had some conception of how every aspect of the game functioned. All the different loadouts, the pilots, the not accessories, the weapons, everything. They had some conception of how all of them functioned, and the different things that you could add on to them, like what was it called, the G2A4. It was kind of like a sniper rifle, but not exactly. You could put a hair trigger on it so that it would fire almost like a machine gun, or as quickly as you could tap your mouse button, because I played this on computer, and it was very accurate. One of my favorite guns in the game was actually the car. It was a machine gun. One of the slowest machine guns as far as the time to kill, but it was also more accurate than the rest of them. So my 2 favorite loadouts to use were the G2A4 and the car. I liked satchels. I liked the STEM pilot. I liked the Atlas Titan. I preferred the 40mm cannon over the machine gun. There were certain things that I preferred. Smokescreen was pretty good. It wasn't my favorite because I preferred cluster missiles. So there were different, depending on how you played the game, there were different things that you could do, absolutely. And like I said, the skill ceiling on the first game was incredibly high, truly. There was a lot of stuff that you needed to learn if you wanted to get good at the game, and it took me months, almost a year, to get decent at the game. I wouldn't say that I was ever good at it, but I got pretty decent. And that's one of the things that I really liked about this game too, was the fact that if you learned everything and you understood what other pilots were using, and you could identify it basically just by looking, what their loadouts were, what type of pilot they were using, what their abilities would be, it made the game not easier, but you instantly understood what you were up against. Alright, so let's talk about Titanfall 2 for a little while. The best part about Titanfall 2 was the campaign. The campaign in Titanfall 2 was a single-player game with a story that went along with it. In the first game, the entire game was online and was played in multiplayer mode. There was no single-player campaign in that respect at all. So, I'll give a quick rundown of the story for Titanfall 2. Basically, you're a rifleman who's dropped on a planet against the opposition. You play as the militia through the entire game, and essentially the pilot that was training you to be a pilot yourself ends up getting defeated. His Titan ends up injured, and you, when you wake up finally from all the drugs that you were given, are asked to take command of the Titan and complete, whatever missions are given to you as a result. The first missions that you're given are to retrieve batteries so that you can get the Titan up and running, and then you're given basically a tutorial on how to pilot a Titan, what its different abilities are. Excuse me. And then you're told to find another pilot named Anderson. Eventually, you fight through a couple of mercenaries along the way for the IMC. And Anderson was investigating a research facility, and this research facility was developing some sort of time weapon or time cloaking, something to that effect. And when you get there, you start to see a bunch of different time distortions. You see little clips of the past before the place was destroyed, which is its current state in the present. Eventually, you find enough information to realize that Anderson himself had a time device on him that would shift back and forth between, a few days to a few weeks in time. I'm sure that the information's there somewhere, but I don't know what it is. And you take this device, you put it on, and you use this time-shifting wristwatch to navigate your way through the facility to try to find the core of this technology. And eventually you realize that the core of the technology was taken to a platform that is located outside of the facility, and something went wrong when they initialized this technology that essentially destroyed the entire base that you're at as a result of that malfunction, whatever it was. Alright, so you go through a couple other things. You need to realign a satellite dish so that you can send a message to the IMC about this new weapon. They call it a fold weapon. The reason that I call it a type of cloaking is because traveling back and forth through time is one hell of a cloak. But regardless, after you contacted them, they are able to detect the signal of this core that they call the Ark, and it's on the planet that you're currently on. So you head to where it's at in an effort to try to prevent them from transporting it to another planet and destroying that one. You fail to make it in time, of course, and then you try to stop the ship itself, and you don't really make that in time either. They end up putting the Ark into its containment field for use, and then BT essentially sacrifices himself to destroy the core, the Ark core itself, before it can be transported, warped, whatever they're going to do, to another planet and destroy it, and in the process, of course, it destroys the planet that you're on. So that's kind of how the second game, as far as the campaign part of it, ends. Now, like I said, the campaign part of it is actually really fun. You do have access to a lot of different weapons. You have access to a lot of different loadouts for the Titan. As far as the multiplayer online part of Titanfall 2, I had a lot of problems with it. Not as in playing the game problems. I did not like the battery system. I thought that the Titans themselves were too powerful. Much more powerful than they were in the first game. They tried lots of different things to try to make the game more balanced, as they call it, but truly it was two different types of gameplay in the second one. Where the first one, a pilot could bring down a Titan pretty quick and pretty easily. In the second one, you essentially needed a Titan to take down a Titan, period. Doing it just as a pilot, you'd probably die before you succeeded in achieving that end. But, and it wasn't just that was a problem with it. I also had a problem with the grappling hook in the second game. I thought that it trivialized the skill necessary to reach top speed, making it simple for basically anyone to reach top speed without much thought or consideration of how to do it involved. Therefore lowering the skill ceiling of the game quite drastically. And not just in the pilot part of the gameplay, but because the Titans were so hard to kill, it also lowered the skill ceiling for Titan combat. Basically, they made the game what they would say is more accessible, rather than making it more difficult, which is what they should have done, in my opinion. I think it would have been a much better game had they made it more difficult for people, in general, to play the second game. Added more skill-based gameplay to it, rather than removing skill-based gameplay. But that's just my opinion. I mean, they had their own ideas on what they wanted to do, and they implemented them. As far as the other game, the Battle Royale game that they came out with later, I'm trying to remember the name of that. I never played it, and I won't play it, because they removed the unique movement system that they had in the Titanfall series from the gameplay in Apex. I think that's what it's called, Apex Legends, I believe, something like that. Yeah, you couldn't run on walls anymore. There was no like high-speed maneuvering system. They nerfed the game even further for their Battle Royale game that they created. Now, I realized that it was, it made a lot of money or whatever, and it was profitable for them, but I never played it. I have no intentions of playing it. I have no interest in playing it, period. It may be in the same universe, it may be made by the same company, but it is not the same game as far as I'm concerned, not even close. Like I said, even with the second game, they lowered the skill ceiling that was needed to play the game at a high level rather than raising it. It's kind of the same problem that I had with RPGs, how they kept making them easier after a certain point rather than continuing to make them harder and more difficult and adding to the skill-based gameplay that they could have done and chose not to. They chose to go in the complete opposite direction to make them more accessible. I really, really hate that phrase at this point. Because if you look at games today, they all have basically the exact same mechanics across the board. They're almost all games are all the exact same thing across the board. The only difference being the storyline and the placement of said story, as far as whether it's a fantasy world or a futuristic world or a dystopian world. I mean, that's really the only thing that changes anymore. And I truly feel like this has hurt the gaming industry more than it's ever helped it. I mean, you got people today who would rather play games on their phone than even bother with buying like a computer and playing a AAA title, because the AAA titles have gone to complete crap. And they have. I haven't bought a new game, new being recently developed, in years. And I have no intentions of buying a new game that's been recently developed. I see no reason to. I have games that are similar and in truth better because they're not broken upon launch to where you can't even play them. You gotta wait for the updates and the fixes and the, all of this BS for it to even be functional. Just like I have no intentions of ever getting a PlayStation 5. I don't see the point. A lot of things that Sony is doing today and their positions on different topics that they should have no position at all on have just completely turned me off to the whole idea of giving money to people who obviously hate me. I've never been much of a fan of that, so I won't engage with it. I'll keep my money and spend it on what they would call retro games, because at least retro gaming, A, is functional, and B, I'm not buying the games from the companies themselves. I'm buying them secondhand from secondhand stores. So I'm not, in truth, giving these people who blatantly hate me any type of funding or any type of monetary gain from my gaming experience and enjoyment. And at least that makes me feel a little better. It's the same thing with movies. I stopped watching movies years ago because it's obvious that the entertainment industry also hates me. I don't purchase magazines or subscriptions like I used to because they hate me as well. And I'm not going to pay money in support of companies that have directly stated that they believe I am the problem. Well, if I'm the problem and you hate me, well, then I'm not going to support you, period. And I don't feel like I should either. Eventually, these companies will go out of business, and hopefully new companies that aren't insanely woke will replace them and start creating actual entertainment again.
You got it.
Fleet, this is Harmony Command. Good to have you back. Welcome home.
The destruction of Typhon saved the planet Harmony. The militia calls this planet their headquarters, but millions of others call it home.
Y'all did good out there.
Commander Briggs says I'll be inducted into the Marauder Corps and assigned a new Titan, after the techs wipe what's left of my neural link with BT. I don't know what that'll feel like, to get assigned a new Titan.
Thanks for us.
I kinda like the old one.
Great job on Titanfall, to all of you.
This is Pilot Jack Cooper, signing off.
You know, that's my hope anyway. I don't know if it'll actually come to fruition. Who knows? But that's my hope. Anyway, that's my rant for the day. I hope that you enjoy the rest of yours. If you could hit the like, subscribe, rumble, follow buttons, all that does help. And I will talk to you later.